Hello, I'm Alan from Exa Foundation. Now, I want to introduce you to my friend Jessica Rose. Based in Birmingham, West Midlands, Jess is a technology professional and a conference speaker, and she specialises in community building, outreach, and helping to develop talent and equal access within technology. Now, I first met Jess at a tech conference a few years back, and I was immediately struck by how chill Jess is about making bad decisions. And she has some advice to offer you in this respect. But before we go and meet Jess, I've got 5 questions that I want you to try to answer. Now, you won't know the answer straight away, you'll be guessing, but I want you to guess. Guessing can be fun. And when you hear Jess speak, the answers will then become revealed to you. Now, before we go and hear Jess, I want us to go and look at what these questions are. So question number 1, there's one social media platform that Jess admits she's just not great with. Which one? Question number 2, Jess discovered a way she could stay in nice hotels for free. She could attend tech conferences for free, even the expensive ones. How? What's the secret that she shares? Question number 3, what does Jess offer as her biggest life pro tip? Question number 4, what other advice does Jess offer, particularly about making decisions, making choices, and bad decisions? And the final question, I asked Jess, if you had to give up your laptop or your phone, which one would you find most difficult to be parted from? So let's go and talk to Jess now. Jessica Rose, we're starting with the same kind of question as well, is to help us understand you and what you do in tech. Could you tell us a little bit, but particularly a project that you're
Oh,
particularly proud of?
fantastic. Um, so a lot of people ask what I do. And it's and usually in the context of, do you even have a job? Because I'm really lucky. I'm getting to work part-time as well. Um, and I work in developer relations, which is this idea of I work with a developer facing service or product, and I help them talk to more developers. And I really love talking to younger folks about this because I think I was an educator before I moved into tech. And I think as parents or as teachers, it's always really tempting to be like, oh, well, this thing that you like that I can't see the value in, ignore that and be deadly serious. But stuff like, oh gosh, are you very good at TikTok? Or oh, are you really good at social media? Oh, are you making and editing your own videos? The space I'm in, those are actively sought out. I must confess, I'm not great at TikTok. So if anybody wants to be like, oh, Auntie Jess, this is how you do it, come and get me.
So the part of the question was something you're particularly proud of. So I
Oh,
could just search for you online and I can find lots of projects that, oh, Jessica Rose did this, Jessica, but tell us one for you that really stands out.
I must confess that one of the things I'm proudest of doesn't really feel like a formal project. I've been doing open career advice sort of calls with just random delightful strangers who want to work in tech or who work in tech for about 6 or 7 years now. And I must confess that's the thing I like best, just getting to talk to new people about like, oh, what's your problem? That's a weird problem. Oh, let's see if we can unpick this. It has been really, really exciting to sort of get out of my bubble and hear about what folks are looking at.
Do you find if you're giving advice to other people, do you find is the advice coming from you thinking, oh well, this is the way I would always do it, or do you?
So I'm nodding because I'm really conscious that everyone gives bad advice. Nobody tells you what's going to be best for you. Everybody tells you, and this is so specific, they're going to tell you what they like to think they would do in your situation, not what they would actually do, but what their idealized self would do. And it's usually a lie. Like, oh, I would definitely do this responsible thing where I go to bed early and eat my vegetables. Yeah. But the advice I tend to give is mostly listening, and then trying to unblock folks. It's never, oh, I think you should. Most folks who talk to me, they know what they want to do. They're making really, really good movement towards it. And just being able to say things like, oh, you know what, getting your first job in tech is really hard. It's not just you. is most of what I get to do and say, hey, this problem you're having makes sense. It's not your fault.
So when people tell you, just, I'm finding this, trying to find the career I want in tech really hard, you could say, well, Alan, that's because it is hard.
And I think we set a lot of expectations that are fibs, if not lies. So when we say, oh, you should go into tech, there's so much demand. The unemployment rate in tech is less than 1%, which is true. Um, but that doesn't really set an appropriate expectation. Whereas getting your first job in tech, especially if you're self-taught, is can be really, really challenging. And we say, oh, salaries for developers, for an example, they're fantastic. And when you talk to somebody getting their first junior dev role, maybe in London, and they say, oh, cool, I still have roommates. I have a lot of roommates. And you say, me, yeah, the salaries pick up later. We didn't really set good expectations for you.
So, so you were telling us you work in developer relations. That doesn't sound to me like the kind of thing a 14-year-old would fill in a form. Like 14-year-old Jess, come on, what subjects are you going to choose at school? I say, well, which ones do I need to choose to go into developer relations? So there was an interesting journey where you've probably stopped off at a few other stops along the way.
Yeah, so I was a teacher and a teaching assistant for a long time. I did some voice acting for a while, which I mean, I don't necessarily recommend it, but like the pay is nonsense and it's stressful and you're not going to get to work on cartoons. And just bounced around a bit and sort of accidentally landed in this. I wanted to go to a conference, and tech conferences, I mean, the jams are free and accessible and lovely. But traditional tech conferences are wonderfully expensive. And I found a con where if you give a talk at a conference, they give you a free ticket. And later, I learned that they'll fly. Well, I mean, when travel exists again, y'all don't get on any planes. But they'll fly you there and they'll put you in a nice hotel. And who doesn't? And after going, I met a lot of people who were like, "Oh yeah, this is my job," and I'm like, "Yeah, okay, you stay in a nice hotel and you just get up and you yeah, all right."
So some of that sounds a little bit like um, having the confidence to put yourself forward, because I know sometimes when I've said to people, how would you feel about speaking at this event? Oh, no, nobody would want to hear me speak. Whereas you sound like you've already managed to cross over that barrier of, well, heck,
Oh,
surely people would want to listen to what I've got to say.
I'm not sure I would frame it as confidence. I think um, I usually encourage folks who want to go into a similar space to just get really comfortable with being wrong out loud. And being a teacher is a fantastic fit for that. The first time a 7-year-old is like, Miss, that's actually not even remotely true. You can either double down and be a bad teacher or just get like, oh, really? Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah. And get really comfortable with being wrong about the most basic things and just really chill about it. Um, I kind of gently argue that, again, this is people giving advice based on their perspectives, but I gently argue this is sort of my biggest life pro tip as well. Like, you're going to be wrong. You're going to be wrong a lot. You can either pretend you're not or get increasingly chill about it. I mean, you could do both. I still do both.
So we follow each other on social media, and occasionally we'll interact. And I've noticed recently you'll put questions out there sometimes that doesn't necessarily strike me as, oh, Jess needs to know the answer to this question. It's almost like to stimulate some topical conversation or debate. I think there was one day you were saying, what's the strangest thing that anybody's ever asked you to do as part of your work?
Oh,
And
yeah.
I thought that'd be a good question to ask Jess. What's the strangest thing you've ever been asked to do as part of your work?
Um, oh gosh. What is the I'm gonna grab a drink of water. What's the strangest I get asked to do strange things so regularly that I'm kind of mellow about it.
Well, I suppose we all have a different spectrum of strange. What may be strange for one person may not be so strange for another. I mean, sometimes when you're in a technical role, people will sometimes ask you questions that they perceive as technical.
Yeah. I think the weirdest thing I've done is like go and pick up someone's dog from the vet at a conference where the conference organizers are just all over the place and they're like, we need somebody who can go get this dog. And I'm like, well, how big's the dog? All right, yeah. like
Oh, pick up
I
rather
yeah.
than collect the dog. Yeah.
I had no idea. It was like, is your dog okay? How big is it? Is it gonna bite me? We're in Berlin. Like, can I walk? Like, so I think could someone, hey, you, can you go get this dog from the vet at a conference was probably the weirdest one and delightful. Who's not going to want to go get a dog?
So some of the people watching this, I'm presuming will be a young audience who haven't yet absolutely decided which career and study choices they're going to go along with. And it may be that, you know, when we're at turning points in our life, like which subjects to study at GCSE or which degree to study, there's there's often no shortage of other people who will, do you know what, you want to do this and you want to do the other. So somebody who you're saying you're often given advice, is there a piece of advice you would give in
Oh,
terms of receiving advice from others?
yes.
Yeah.
So my hobby is I'm really interested in reading about pop psychology. So instead of specific advice, I'm going to talk to you all about my understanding of the psychology of decision making, and it's really cool. So if you and I understand being younger, like going back in time, you're like 2 years. That's like a tenth of my life. Or I forgot that young people are considerably younger than 20. 2 years. That's a massive chunk of my life. Sorry, y'all. I'm very old. But when you make a decision, you say, "Oh, I could move overseas, or I could get a job in my hometown." And I made this choice when I mumble years ago. And then everything that happened after that, one of them is really abstract. I don't know what my life would have been like if I had stayed in my hometown, but I do know what happened. And I have like really firm anchors to the memories of moving overseas and doing this and doing, because you've got those memories. And there's a body of research around decision making that says once you make a decision, once enough time passes, we almost always think that the decision we made was the right choice because we've got these wedded memories. As long as the decision you make doesn't blow up your whole life, you might regret it for a while, but the longer you wait, the more you're likely statistically to think you made the right choice. So terrifyingly, it's kind of that nothing matters decision wise. I mean, obviously make a that these individual decisions that you may be agonizing over matter a lot less than you think they do. But then, really excitingly, hey, as long as I'm okay with myself and as long as I like myself, I'm going to be comfortable with the decisions I've made as I grow into them. I always find that so freeing. So, when people give you advice, take it or don't take it, they're not necessarily telling you what's right for you. But the decisions you make, once you settle into them, they're going to feel okay.
Okay. And we're going one final kind of slightly strange question was suggested
Stranger
by,
than, oh, well,
well,
you know, nothing matters in a
a
good way.
okay, well, a slightly strange question. So I'd like to imagine in your current role that you are using a laptop and a mobile phone, and somebody's going to say to you, Jess, we're going to take one of these away for you for the next 3 or 4 years. You cannot use it. So which would you choose to
Oh,
keep?
yeah, my laptop's gone.
The
That's
lap
fine.
the
Yeah, it's
laptop
gone.
is
Yeah,
gone.
yeah. Like someone else can do my blog post writing. We're good. Like that is my work machine. And like this is where my heart sits. So yeah, no one's taking my pocket computer.
Okay,
I
so
can
the
pretend to go back and forth on that, but no, my phone. Yeah.
okay, well that surprised me. I thought you were going to say the other, but it's I suppose it's how you phrased it, as your pocket computer rather than your phone. It's your pocket computer, which is your heart.
Yeah.
So Jess, thank you very much for joining.